Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey. We'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. In each episode, we will come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters, growth and progress, not perfection, all while developing positive habits for you to utilize. To learn more, please visit positiverecovery.com/podcasts to sign up and to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive positive recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're new here, I'm your host, Dr. Jason Powers. And in each episode, we cover a variety of topics in the recovery space, including positive psychology, best practices for a successful recovery journey, the power of gratitude, why accountability and community matter, the power of change, celebrating milestones. We also interview industry-leading experts about their experiences in helping others thrive and flourish. This week, I wanted to share with you Brett Bagley, a former teacher and coach, regional marketing specialist for the Phoenix, a national sober active recovery community. In 2021, after graduating with her master's in social work from Western New Mexico University, Brett started the Phoenix's House chapter, and within a year had grown the Phoenix Houston community to over 3,000 members and more than 80 monthly Phoenix classes. She's also a founding board member of the Party Sober Partnership, where she got to work closely alongside some recovery all-stars. In 2022, Brett moved into her marketing role and headed back to the East Coast to New Jersey. She's a mother of two, Bennett and Kyle, wife to Rob, an athletic director, an avid sports and music fan, and community organizer at heart. Brett loves writing songs, playing sports, and coaching her boys' teams. She enjoys being involved in the community in various ways. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we have topics every month. And it's mindful recovery, guided meditation, and mindfulness tips, how to stay present and focus, stress reduction, relying on healthy habits. Do any of these resonate with you? Are any of these things you want to talk about?
Yeah, the mental health side of things, I'm a little more familiar with than the recovery side of things. I'm not in recovery myself. I'm an ally, supporter of our community. But I think the mental health component is so key. It's been a huge part of my journey in getting my master's in social work and wanting to learn behaviors myself, rather than seeing a therapist once a week or every other week. How can I change this how can I learn more about how to do this for myself and then use that to help others? So I think this is great. Right now, something we're doing with our sober run crew with the Phoenix is we're doing a Phoenix move streak, which is cool, because it incorporates this movement into mental health, right? They are not separate things. They need to be together. Moving, community, it really stands to improve one's mental health. So, and we also changed that word we did a run streak a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. And we pivoted with that word to move, to make it feel more inclusive. Because when I see run streak, this goes into the mental health side of things for a second. But when I see the word run and I see the word streak next to it, I think, oh God, if I walk, I'm a failure. I'm done, right? There goes the streak. It's over. So we decided to move it into a move streak to where you can move in any kind of way and you're not putting that pressure on yourself to run. Just move.
Right.
Today I went and played tennis for 30 minutes and I was like, I'm too tired today. I'm good. But I moved. I did it, right? So I got to check the box off. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's crucial. I think optimal health, I never really understood sort of what that meant. And for me, it was you have to be free of all things and all pain. And that's how you get optimal health. But really, optimal health is just having an optimal relationship with the health that you have. And I love that because, somebody's going to look at run streak and think I can't run and they won't participate.
Right.
And Yeah.
But
That's wonderful.
it's amazing because movement is yoga, it's boxing, it's walking your dog, it's going on a hike, it's watercolor painting, if you ask me, anything that
True.
you can do to move and to better, to get yourself in a better mental space is good. So
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you how you sort of got into like the desire to move away from biweekly or even weekly therapy in a sec. Just that, recently, well, if you don't mind, but
I like it.
okay, good. Recently, Eminem celebrated 16 years in recovery, and he talks about like, yeah, and I got sober. I had to lose weight. I started running, which helped me fall asleep, and you know how crucial that is.
Right.
And I will say kudos to the community aspect of it because we are hardwired to connect with others, and
Oh,
especially if you do things like that are good for you, like moving,
hmm
with other people, it like doubles it.
for
So
sure.
yeah, so I love when people that don't have a substance use disorder or addiction issue sort of get into helping those of us who have it. And I was kind of wondering like why?
Okay. I'm glad you asked that because I think there is such a huge space for supporters and allies within the recovery community. And I think if you only had people that were in recovery, you're it's an echo chamber of sorts, right? If you only had supporters and allies or whatever of the recovery community, it's the same thing. So having this combination of the two, it's so important to me and it means so much to me. And I think I'm a helper just by trade, or just not by trade, but it's just in my nature, right? As a teacher,
Right.
teachers are superheroes. And I think that if you can manage a classroom of 20 to 30 or a gym, little people, you can do anything. So I think my teaching career kind of prepared me to step into these different roles. So I've always been a helper by in heart and whatever. So when this position came up with the Phoenix to start this Houston chapter, I was like, I'm not in recovery myself, but I have so many family and friends who've been impacted by it. I've lost relatives to overdoses. I've lost friends to the mental piece that comes with a lot of times the addiction, right? So it was such a cool, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world to get to do this work, and to help others.
Yeah, and thank you. People like you, it's not so much that, in my opinion, that it's an echo chamber, but if we in recovery only surrounded ourselves with ourselves,
Right.
that is so isolating.
Yes. Yes. That's a better way to put it. Not an echo chamber. You're totally right, for sure.
Yeah, and it's the I feel like it's so misunderstood, and this is true of mental health too, but like having an addiction
Mm-hmm.
is a human experience. It's things taken to an extreme, but it doesn't make us not like other people. We are people,
Right.
and we forget. And I think it's forgotten because there's this talk about us and normies. I've never met a normal person in my life.
Oh my goodness. I think that is just such horrible language, for sure. Yeah, you cannot.
Yeah,
We all have our own struggles. I've had my own different struggles that are not substance use related, but I mean, we can all relate to each other. I love the song by who sings it? It's Strangers on This World We Are On. You know that song? But we are not two, we are one. Like that's it. That's it.
I
That's
think you
it.
should sing more of it for me to like recognize it.
I took my speaker today with me to tennis because music just makes me happy, right?
Mm.
So I took it today and that song came on and it took me back to a place where I was at Dopey Con in New York City with the Dopey podcast. Dave does a really great podcast called the Dopey Podcast, but he had this Dopey Con event and we all lit candles for people who we lost to addiction.
Mm.
And they played that song and I just was like, I will never look at that song the same. So it is this, I just hold it so dear now, So, but it totally highlights what you're saying. Like strangers on this world we are on, like we are, but we're not two. We are one. We are all the same.
No, right. It's true. I mean, we're a lot more similar than different. With the world just seems to be so polarized
Mm-hmm.
now. It wasn't that way growing up.
Right.
And whatever's behind it or wherever you might land, like if you take a step back, we're all primates on a rock hurling through space. Like
That's it.
we are more
That's
similar than different.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I look at people in recovery. I think, wow, I get to work alongside. Again, going back to teachers being superheroes, I think
They totally are.
but I think people in recovery are equally like heroic to having come from like where you have come and what you have been through, and to be sitting here having this podcast with me, and you're a doctor now. It's like mind-boggling. It's amazing. It's hard for me to wrap my head around how far some people come, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, really, it is. It is. And sometimes I even forget too. Like, I forget that when I got sober, I was sharing a house, an apartment or whatever with rats. There was a rat's nest. I didn't even know. But you know what might have clued me in was my dog was going crazy every night. But like the thing about mental health, and it totally is. It's like there is a struggle that's beneath the surface that to overcome it is heroic. And it's not like, well, you overcome it and then it's behind you and you never ever need to address it or face it. Again, it is something that is with us. And comment on this, even with more media attention and more awareness, it is still in many cases taboo to talk about mental health. It's still judged. Like I'm I'm almost 21 years sober. I have depression. I talk about it, but like the other day in front of my staff, I was like tearing up because I crying. But tearing up is minor. I was like crying, and I'm leading a Zoom with somebody else, and I feel like a flake that I am being. I'm unable to control my emotions in front of my staff. I feel like a flake. I'm somebody who treats it, and I've had it many years.
Yeah.
And it is. I think it's always going to be a struggle because there's so many people that would never have to like celebrate not drinking too much or not putting drugs in their body. And so they won't relate. They're like, what's the big deal? I just say no. I don't, the way they react to it. And some people are blessed with they don't have an inner dialogue. They don't have depression. And so there's always going to be this misunderstandings. Kind of, what's your take on all that I just said?
Well, the first thing that I thought of automatically when you said what did you call yourself, a flake? No.
Yeah.
No, you are not.
I know.
Jimmy V gave that speech. Do you know Jimmy Valvano?
Of course.
Okay.
But he beat my cougs, so I'm not happy with.
Well, he gave that speech when he was dying from cancer, and he said you need to do these things every day to like fully live. It was laugh. It was have your emotions move you to tears.
Great speech.
That is such a good speech. And so sometimes when I lose my cool, it's not even my cool, because that automatically means I'm not cool. No, sometimes when I lose my emotions, like just when I was talking about that song, right, that I just mentioned to you, it almost made me tear up. But like, that's what life is supposed to be lived like, right? We have to experience these really, really hard moments to appreciate the good moments. And like you just said, you have to be moved to tears. That is, I don't know. Did I answer your question? Your question was, how do I feel? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just sort of like in mental health awareness, there are a lot of people that struggle with it, and like
Yeah,
like how do you encourage others to overcome the fear that shame's going to overwhelm you? And
yeah. Well, I think that starts with being really open and honest about your own story. My husband labels me an oversharer, but I think that that's one of my superpowers, really, is being comfortable enough to share something like that with somebody that maybe I don't know that well. Because a lot of times I have found when I share something like that, it's reciprocal, right? Like they share something with me that they haven't shared with anybody else. So I think that's the first step in breaking down that stigma, right? Is being open about it ourselves. And making people feel comfortable to come to us with something like that.
Yeah, I'm totally okay if you bring your vulnerability to me. But when I share mine, especially when it's like, when it comes out and I don't have like an awareness where I can filter it a little bit, where it's in my opinion digestible for masses, to consume.
But don't you think that that's okay, and that they see you at that moment and they're like, wow, if he's struggling with it a little bit and he's this insanely smart and impressive person, like I'm good. I can deal, right?
Yeah.
I hate to use like comparing each other to each other, but sometimes it's nice to like have like somebody like you to look at and to see you break down like that and be like, I'm on the right track. I'm doing,
Yeah.
you know?
Case in point, what's her name? Mimi Osaka. I'm totally destroying her name, but the tennis player who
Oh,
was
Naomi Osaka. Naomi?
Naomi. Yeah. Yeah. And she got nothing but love, at least from the pundits that I listened to. Like nobody on ESPN said anything like, oh, she shouldn't have talked about that.
Yeah.
It was all good. And she's a role model. I don't know if I am, but she definitely is.
For sure. And I do think that, yes, there is still a stigma surrounding it. And I think it's really, well, I don't know. I'm female, but it's probably equally difficult as a male to be emotional and to be okay with that, and to not feel like less of a man because you're crying or whatever that looks like. But, I think that while there is still a stigma, it's getting better. Even in little small increments like that, right?
Yeah.
To see somebody like that come out with a story and for people to be supportive. I don't know if we would have seen that 10 or 15 years ago.
No, the media would have destroyed her.
It would have destroyed her, but at the same time, we wouldn't have seen as much of it because we weren't bombarded by social media stuff too, right? So,
right.
But yeah, I think you're right. The media would have destroyed her.
So talk a little more about what you do with the Phoenix group and sort of how's that made accessible to people? Like, how can they find out about it?
Oh man, it is like, I don't know how I landed in the Phoenix, but I feel like it's like my dream job is getting to work in this field. After I finished my master's in social work, I was thinking I wanted to be a school counselor or a school social worker. So I was in a school during the pandemic as a social worker, an elementary school, very low income elementary school. And it was heartbreaking, to see some of the stuff that we saw on a daily basis. And then having kids of my own, you have to like protect your energy, right? Like in some ways. And I had to acknowledge, like, I cannot keep doing this and come home to my own children and give them what they need, right? So I pivoted out of that. I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm made for this. I'm going to start looking for different social work jobs. So I found this Phoenix job posting. I was like, what is this? Is this real? Like, I had to vet it because I was like, this sounds like too good to be true, kind of, And it was a little bit scary, like starting a chapter. What does that even mean? What does that look like?
Right.
From nothing. I mean, like, so anyway, so I started the Phoenix chapter in 2021. And I just remember sitting at like one of our first events we got going with a partner out there, sitting at a rock climbing event all by myself, waiting for anybody to show up, and nobody came for like the first couple of classes. Yeah. And so it was really difficult in the beginning, but it's kind of the field of dreams thing, right? Like if you build it, they will come. So I kept on and I kept on. And one by one, I would get somebody in and they'd be like, yo, I'll volunteer. Okay, let's get this going over here, And all of a sudden we had over, in a year's time, like 3,000 people, Phoenix members. And we had a packed calendar of free, sober things to go do all over the city. So, all over, because Houston is like this giant. Are you in Houston, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes. It is. Yeah. With no zoning, it's just sprawling, like it's
right.
everywhere.
And you could drive an hour and still be like in Houston.
Easily.
Yeah. So what has that meant to me? That was your question, right? Like being a part of that community. It is like social work personified, like community organizing. That is my favorite. I learned that. It was my favorite class in my social work degree was community organizing because it felt like strategic and it felt like about relationships, which I really enjoy, building new relationships. And then there was the marketing side of community organizing where you're taking data and you're turning it into infographics. So it's more digestible for people. And I loved it. So when this job came open, and then I had success with the Houston chapter, it was just like, I think that's what I think community organizing, man, is where it's at, And so I'm not like a social worker in a hospital doing stuff like that, but I think there's such a big space for social workers in that community organizing space.
You're like literally doing what the word social and worker is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's true because it is. It's a social community. You're bringing people together from all walks of life, and just to be a part of that community again, where people have come. I was meeting weekly with people who had just transitioned out of correctional facilities. So I would go and speak to 60 men in a facility in Houston, and I would say, "Hey, we're starting this chapter. You guys are about to be like out here. What do you want to see? What do you want to do? Let's get it going." But to hear some of their stories and then to actually see them after they've left this facility at an event, like what is happening? I want to cry again talking about it because it just made me so happy. It's just great. I don't know what else I can.
what's like the biggest challenge that you face in the work you do?
Oh, okay. So I was the program manager there, right, in Houston. So I was out in the community a lot. I was meeting new people. I was going to luncheons. I was speaking. I was doing Zoom meetings. I was going into treatment centers and doing board games with clients, painting and doing all these kinds of fun things. The hardest part of that was it's just tiring, right? You want to help everybody, but you have this little battery, right, of like percentage.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's say I even started 100% in a day, right?
Yeah.
I have my family, I have my kids. They're doing their own things. So I had to really kind of come to terms with like pulling back just a little bit, I guess, and recognizing that no is a complete sentence. It doesn't need to come with an apology or a reason, right? So that was the hardest part, was like saying no and saying, I don't have time for this right now. And not feeling guilty about that. Like I'm not doing what I can to help, So now, but fast forward into this, I'm on the marketing team now with the Phoenix. And one of the challenges I face now is I don't get to be in the community as much as I was, right?
Right. It is different having a step back, but it's also you're influencing a lot more people.
Yes, but like I feel alive after I attend a Phoenix event, because you get to interact with these people that like you said, you're influencing. I don't know if I like that word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Interfacing or sort of enabling others to participate. A lot more people get to participate.
Yeah. But, so I don't get to be out in the community as much as I would like to be. So that's probably the challenge I face now. Because I derive a lot of that energy, of my own energy, from interacting with people, So working from home has been a little bit different for me.
Yeah.
So I do what I can, though, to like, you also...
Yeah. I don't hate it.
So I do what I can. No, I don't hate it. And I shouldn't even, that's another interesting topic we could talk about too. But working from home and its effects on like our immune system and our social circles and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just a challenge I face with working from home for sure.
So just from my own curiosity, you're doing marketing for Phoenix National or...
So I'm like the East Coast, the regional marketing specialist for the East Coast. There are two of us, and we kind of like split the country in half a little bit by geography. So one of the things when I took the role, I was still in Houston when I took this role, and they asked that I just move to the East Coast at some point, like within the year. My husband got a cool job here, so to be like kind of within distance of our East Coast chapters here.
Okay.
And we have Amtrak over here on the East Coast, so I can it's amazing. The public transit, game changer.
We need it.
You do need it. I keep hearing about the bullet train from Dallas Fort Worth to Houston, and I pray that goes through.
Yeah, I don't know who's squashing it, but I mean that would be such a good idea.
I think Amtrak just took it over, so maybe it'll happen within like the next 20 years.
Yeah. So your husband is athletic director of what?
Yeah, he's an athletic director at an all-girls Catholic private high school here in New Jersey. So he oversees the entire athletic department.
Nice. Yeah. No, that's cool. That is really cool.
Yeah,
Did you play sports growing up?
I did. Yeah, I played I played just about every sport, but then I played basketball in college as well. So
Which one?
I played at Sam Houston State, right there in Huntsville. I played there for 2 years, and then I transferred to Mary Hardin Baylor,
Yeah.
and I played there for my last 3 years at a medical red shirt. So I got 3 years. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, my son. Yeah, basketball definitely his passion.
Even just like just playing a sport in college is just, it was such a great way for me to meet different people and to also keep me busy, right? And I don't want to say out of trouble, because I got enough trouble even being on the basketball team, but I felt like, I mean, having basketball commitments like 6 to 8 hours a day, what would I have been doing with that time?
So how does, like, if somebody's listening and they want to participate in a sober fun thing, like, is there a website? Or...
Oh my goodness, it's so easy. Yeah, thephoenix.org, thephoenix.org.
Okay.
And then you can go there, but we also have an app. You can open your app and go to your location as to where you are in that moment. If you're at home and you're in Houston, it'll pull up every single event that's happening around Houston. And you literally just hit register for a class. And there you go.
Oh, okay.
And if you can't make it to something in person, we have on-demand stuff, and we have live streaming classes with actual instructors, qualified instructors. So you can do yoga from your house. You can meditate.
Oh, sweet.
And it's not like you're watching a YouTube video. You're actually engaging.
In live?
Yeah. It's very
Man, that's
cool.
so cool. That's so cool. Like kind of an alternative to Peloton.
Yeah.
I mean, not exactly, but
No. Actually, that's a good point. Well, but we offer when the Phoenix first started in 2006, and even up until I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we were really fitness heavy, I guess is a good way to put it. Then you have this pandemic where everybody's just literally sucked away from each other,
right,
and has kind of remained that way. So we've learned, that people just want to get together and they just want to have sober fun. So that can be anything. A Phoenix event can be anything. It could be, a drum circle, a songwriting class. They have a virtual songwriting class that is exquisite. I think I wrote one of my best songs in the Phoenix songwriting class just based on feedback from the instructor. It was great. But these are all free sober events that anybody can access.
That's awesome, because getting sober is not the death of fun at all.
No. And can I tell you something, actually? I'm so proud of this. I'm not in recovery, but hold on. I'm going to tell you. I got to look at my Phoenix app to tell you this, how many days. I haven't. So I grew up in Texas. So I basically have drank beer more than half of my life. Here we go. I have not had a single drop of alcohol in 3 months and 25 days.
Congrats.
Thank you. So again, I'm not in recovery, but I did this dry January thing because I noticed as you get older, it's affecting my sleep. It's affecting my mental health. Let's talk about that again, right? And so I finally was like, you know what? I'm just going to give this a break for a minute and see what happens. And honestly, I have never felt better. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I did like a little video, I guess, TikTok or whatever, on Sober Curious, and how, some people just like how they feel, and you don't have to identify as anything. But look, alcohol has major cultural significance, religious significance. Like, it's not something that I'm attacking as a thing, because that's crazy.
Right.
Prohibition just created more drinking. So that's not the answer, but it's a toxin. The body detoxifies it. And,
yes.
And it does. It's not good for you.
Right.
At any level. Finally, I guess there was enough consensus on the data that was actually looked at. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, breast cancer, heart attacks. So not doing it makes a lot of sense, just from the standpoint of, I want to feel better. I want to sleep better. I want to get along with other people. I want to be more productive. I want to be more engaged. All that.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I think more and more research is coming out with these connections, and good for social media, good and bad. Take the good with the bad, but it's out there, and people are acknowledging that it's, and it's really cool to see the Sober Curious space kind of blow up, because I think what a lot of those people are going to find is that they just stick with it because they feel better, because it's a toxin, because it increases your risk of all these different cancers by, 15 times or whatever it is. But
Well, yeah. So next time I have you on, I'm gonna like see what
oh,
I'm gonna shame you. No, I'm just kidding.
is that an invite? Like I get to be back. I get to be like a recurring guest.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm so glad that you've landed where you've landed, and you're doing so much good and bringing a new perspective, and yeah. So is there anything else you want to either promote or say about your work or?
I mean, we'd hit on the Phoenix. I had a list of things to talk about because you know what else? This is my first podcast. I've been asked to be on a few and I've turned them all down. Then when I heard from George and Julie, I was like, I love these people. And it literally popped up on my app as like I'd not had a drink of alcohol for 100 days. So I was like, this is meant to be. I have to do it. One of the most important things I think that I could share in my own mental health journey is living in a space of gratitude and how that has shifted. So just that shift, that self-talk, right? Of like, I just turned 40. So instead of going, oh God, ugh, what a horrible birth date. It's like,
Right.
how lucky am I to have lived for 40 years? It's a long time.
You know what you have to look forward to now, right?
50?
41.
41, yeah.
Yeah. Unless
but
in your family you skip from 40 to 50. I don't know how it works over there.
I'll look forward to 41.
I mean, yeah, like what's the alternative?
What's the alternative to 41?
Like, you don't like turning 40. You could have stopped at 39. Like, what's the alternative, right?
Yeah, that's true. I know. Yeah. What's the alternative? Yeah. So I just feel very thankful to be 40, to be in this space, to get to work with people who have come from the craziest of spaces to see them living their best life. Well, I will share one other thing because I did write it down and I think it's important. Like the gratitude part is just,
of course,
it's so easy to be so negative. Yeah. And oh, poor me, that kind of thing. But I was at Borderland Music Festival, which is in East Aurora, New York, which is just outside of Buffalo. So kind of the middle of nowhere, New York. I was there as the Phoenix marketing person. I was taking pictures. I was helping with signage, stuff like that. And I was with one of my colleagues who is a huge Fish fan. So Trey Anastasio is playing at this festival. And it's like, I'm not a jam band person. I like music, so I like it, but I don't like gravitate toward it. So, but to be with my colleague that night, we're standing there. Trey comes on, right? The sun has just set. It's a beautiful night. The trees behind are just like tall and green and everything is so beautiful. And to see him having just gotten out of prison 6 or 7 years ago, right? To see him dancing and smiling and living his best life, it was almost too much for me to like comprehend that I got to witness that,
Yeah.
So just being with people like that and I'm surrounded by them in the Phoenix is just, you can't not live in a place of gratitude, kind of forces you into that space, which is where we should all be, I guess. But
I agree.
Not everybody's so lucky to be so surrounded by such hope, right? And jobs we love and jobs that are important and that are impacting so many people in such a positive way. And I feel so, so, so lucky.
Yeah. I got a master's in positive psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know that, but so, that's the study of moving the dial from 0, like no suffering, to +10, where it's like flourishing.
Okay.
Rather than just moving the dial from minus whatever, like I'm suffering to 0. Like if it's not removing the bad, it's building the good. And the most evidence-based modality, there's the most evidence behind the interventions that exist in terms of helping people thrive is gratitude. It is so easy for the human brain to focus on what's negative because like negativity bias is something that helped us survive, and it's been hardwired through hundreds of thousands of years of us being on this planet. And it if you need to survive, you got to focus on threats.
Yeah.
Our brains are hardwired to like, negative gossip, bad gossip is more, we retain that more than, good news about somebody.
Right.
Our brains light up when there's a threatening image rather than a positive image. Although subjectively, we want to see good news and we say, I like it when good things happen. Our brains are like, we are rubberneckers.
Yeah.
Our brains are gonna like focus on that. And so it takes work. There's people that I treat that you interact with that you see will gravitate towards the negative and like focus on that because our brains are hardwired to do that more. But the more time you spend intentionally focusing on the good,
Yep.
hunting for the good stuff,
Yep.
reminding yourself what you have, it rewires the brain to where then that habit starts to become easier.
Yeah. It's kind of like CBT a little bit, like, because what's the outcome of having such negative thoughts? Let's think about that.
More of it.
One of my favorite things in the recovery world, one of my favorite sayings is like, play the tape forward. Like, how is this going to feel down the road? Right. So taking that, and I love that you said that, like just shifting those thoughts, it becomes habit over time for sure.
And a lot of us, it's work. Yeah.
You have to surround yourself with people that kind of live in that space too, right? Aren't we? What's that saying? You're like the
birds of a feather flock together.
Birds of a feather flock together, but it's also like if there are 5 people, like you're I can't remember, but it's basically like you're like the least of the 5. So however they act, like does that make sense?
Well, there's a saying. It's like, enséñame tus amigos, te demuestro quién eres. Like, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are.
Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. That definitely applies for sure too. I love that. Okay, yeah, that's great. I'll have to find the 5-person one because I was like, oh, that's so good. If I picked my top 5 people that I hang out with the most, what do they look like and how is that affecting me? Right?
Things move through social networks. Happiness is contagious and so is sadness,
right?
Obesity, heart disease. So yeah, people are, gravitate towards, but make yourself somebody who you want to be.
Yes, that's somebody that you want. Yeah, that's exactly right. For sure. Who you'd want to be around. That would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's not so easy, but focusing on gratitude can help rewire your brain in a way. It's the same thing as like fake it till you make it, which I used to hate because I used to think fake what until you get where. And I don't want to be insincere. But the truth is, like, if you put a pen in your mouth,
yes,
and you force a smile, you release endorphins.
Right. Don't they say like you could even if fake laughing? I've even heard like fake laughing does stuff. Yeah.
It makes you laugh too. Like,
because you're like,
legitimately,
what? I am losing my mind over here. Fake laughing.
Exactly.
What have I become?
Yeah. Well, Brett, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on.
This was fantastic. Oh, I loved it. And I'll be back whenever you want. We can talk about whatever you want.
Until then, Brett.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecovery.com/podcast to sign up to get your daily positive interventions sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY. That's 877-476-2743. Our why is simple. We care. We are here to help.